What you eating?
A cutie.
You're always eating something, and it's gross.
Don't you eat?
Yes, but not on camera. That's gross.
Why is that gross?
They don't want to see you smacking your gob.
I've actually had some people comment how oddly satisfying it is to them to see me eating on camera.
It's some weird fetish they have. Hey, welcome back to our Stupid Directions Videos. I'm Corbin.
I'm Rick.
And you can follow us on Instagram and Twitter for more juicy content. Juicy content.
It's so juicy.
Thank you so much. On Patreon, follow us on Twitter account.
It's that juicy.
Today, it's a little informational video from Vox, who usually does good informational videos.
They do.
But this is called How the Border Transformed a Subcontinent.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it's going to be probably a deep one. Yes,
we're talking India,
the one where, the one
Pakistan.
you're thinking is.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's a little long, but
This might be sad, too.
Yeah, it is. I'm guessing.
How long is this?
About 17 minutes.
Okay.
So it's
going to make me cry.
Vox usually does really good work.
Yeah.
They're really good. They do a lot of research, and their videos are well put together. So hopefully all the information will be correct.
Yes.
Because obviously we know some stuff about the border, obviously. As I think most people do now.
Yeah.
Because the tensions.
Which we did know. We can say this. We are kind of a little ahead of the curve compared to the average American bear. We were aware of the fact before this channel that these two countries were the same country, and the difference between the two, and when that happened, we were thankfully, because you might not know, Corbin and I pay really close attention to international affairs and politics, and this is something that we knew a little bit about, but we're really learning more about.
We know there's a lot of nuances that are
incredibly complex.
And that obviously has to do with all the
emotional,
tensions.
tense, and we also recognize the difference between the people and the governments.
Yes.
Huge difference. So I'm very interested in
Here
this.
we go. Is that the Golden Temple?
This is the Golden Temple. People come here from all over the world to bathe in its waters, to look at the holy book that is inside of this middle Golden Temple, and to just experience the holiness of this place. Wow. This place is the epicenter of Sikhism. It sits right here in northern India, in a city called Amritsar. Close by, there's another important Sikh site called Kartarpur. It was established by the founder of Sikhism 500 years ago. It's the place where he spent the last years of his life, and it is the second holiest place in Sikhism. For centuries, Sikhs have been able to make pilgrimage between these two sites, to move freely throughout their heartland. But in 1947, a British lawyer drew a border here, turning what had been British India into two new countries.
I didn't know it
Pakistan.
separated those two holy
We call
places.
it the most sort of bizarre lines which were ever drawn across a map.
It went right here, with the Golden Temple on one side and Kartarpur on the other. Thanks to this border, Sikhs in India are now cut off from their holy site. So many come here, to a platform that the Border Patrol set up.
So they have to
The platform looks across the
look-
border,
and look
where with
through-
the help of telescopes, Sikhs can look at their holy place.
Oh man,
Just 3 or 4 kilometers away.
that's awful. That's really awful.
In addition to cutting off communities from their sacred sites, this border separated families, cut across rivers, forests, farms, railroad tracks.
And it was the British that did it? That makes sense.
Today, this border is heavily fortified, with nearly all 3,000 plus kilometers fenced. It's lit so well that you can see it from space.
Wow. Really?
And barely anything or anyone crosses over it.
When we talk about the drawing of the line, what was the most painful was the division of families which took place. And that is a very big reality.
This is the story of a violent separation. One of the most traumatic events of the 20th century. It's the story of how a hastily drawn line on a map separated one people into two.
This is a horror story. What we saw was a town soaked with the stench of death.
In the train of murder and arson come the refugees. Their suffering in the
of the things that are setting the hearts burning on either side of the line.
The sun is setting and I'm walking along one of the oldest roads in Asia, one that used to connect this region. But today, a border runs through it, and instead of connection and trade, what you see here is this. There's barbed wire, there's fences, there are officers everywhere, and yet there's also ice cream and popcorn and paraphernalia. This feels like a sporting event. You can buy keychains of machine guns.
That's terrible.
Thousands of
chant at each other?
spectators file in, filling this stadium that looks down on the border. On the other side, Pakistanis are doing the same. Then, both sides start their different show. Two hours of chanting, dancing. Then the finale, a face-off between the two sides. They strut back and forth in this coordinated choreography. And it all ends with the lowering of each flag and the closing of this gate. This bizarre border show plays out every evening. But this ceremony, this fence, this intense nationalism, if you rewind just a little in time, none of this existed.
This happens every day, every freaking day.
The British controlled parts of India for nearly 200 years, but by 1947, a strong movement of independence was swelling across the subcontinent. While back in Britain, the country was in massive debt after fighting World War II and didn't have the resources to hold on to their colony. So they started making plans to leave India. British officials thought that a proper transfer of power would probably take around 5 years. But when the British leader in charge arrived in early 1947, he hastily decided to shrink their exit timeline. And so what needed 5 years would now need to be done in just 4 months. British India was to be split into two independent nations, a mostly Muslim Pakistan and a Hindu majority but officially secular India. To do the actual drawing of the border, the British brought in a lawyer from London. He arrived the month before the British were supposed to leave India. He hadn't been to British India before and didn't know much about the region.
He had no idea about India, no idea about Indian geography, no idea about Indian politics.
And yet he was the one drawing the lines on the map that would affect millions of lives. During his visit, this British lawyer looked at maps and census data, focusing on the maps that showed religious identity of people in India.
Why didn't
India
they just
has a wide variety
make it
of
what it was
religions,
before they took over?
and based on these census maps, you can see that people of all religions lived amongst each other all over the region.
It's India.
So to draw the line, the British lawyer looked at individual districts, putting any district that had a Muslim majority population into the new country of Pakistan, while Hindu and Sikh majority districts would be kept within India.
Sorry, I thought I heard something weird.
Based on this method, the lawyer began to see what a border might look like.
So his
He only had
primary
5
thought
weeks
was,
to do
let's
this.
separate them based on
He later
religious
wrote
belief.
that it would have
That always
taken
works.
years
That's a
to settle
great
on a proper
motivation for a
boundary.
border.
And that's because this method of drawing a line conceals that within these districts,
still don't
there were
understand why it
sizable
had to be
communities of all
split in
religions
half
that
like
had
that.
been living side by side for
At all.
centuries,
Why did
all
it need to be
throughout
split?
India.
That's my ignorance, guys. Why wasn't it just returned back to the way it was before they took
Independence
over?
Day for India and Pakistan, but Gandhi is not present. Why the celebration?
The British lawyer left that day. He would never return to India again. 2 days after independence, the borders were made public, prompting more than 14 million people to leave their homes, their lives, for what was now their side of the border.
We were told that you have to cross the border, India.
एक गिलास भी नहीं लियांदा पानी पीने वास्ते कोई कोली नहीं चक्की सारा सामान में छोड़ा
Because of
Hindus
your
and
religious
Sikhs from
affiliation?
Pakistan moved into India, and many Muslims in India moved into the new Pakistan.
These were people who were indeed forced to lose their entire homes, their memories, their childhood, and the things they saw.
It was one of the largest forced migrations of people ever, and it was chaos. A chaos that led to widespread, unspeakable violence. Cities on fire,
Yeah, you think you'd be a
sexual
little pissed
violence
about that?
against women, trains full of dead bodies. The survivors I talked to were just children when all of this happened.
ਸਾਨੂੰ ਐ ਲੱਗਾ ਵੀ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਇੱਥੇ ਮਾਰ ਦੇਣਗੇ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਨਿਕਲਣਾ ਪੈਣਾ ਹੈ
ਲੈਣਾ ਹੀ ਲੱਗੀਆਂ ਹੁੰਦੀਆਂ ਸੀ ਖੂਨੋ ਖੂਨ ਹੋਇਆ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਸੀ
The division of the subcontinent became known as the partition of India, a phrase synonymous with trauma, fueled by the reckless mismanagement of an imperial power. I'm in a small village right near the border on the Indian side that used to be a Muslim community before partition. And in the middle of town is this shrine where residents would conduct ornate Muslim burial practices on these graves.
So they had to
The
leave the
original
grave
maps
sites
that
of
the
their
British drew
family.
up when they were trying to draw this line. This town was actually in Pakistan in most of the maps. But in the end, the British lawyer decided to draw the line here. The people here discovered that they were now a part of the new country of India, and so many of them fled just across the border to the new state of Pakistan, and they left this place empty. But just as Muslims were leaving this village for the new Pakistan, Hindus and Sikhs from Pakistan were coming across into India, and some ended up here.
उनको अपनी जो ज़मीन थी अपनी उनकी वो पाकिस्तान से इधर लौट हुई
The Hindus and Sikhs that now live in this community have taken it upon themselves to continue the Muslim traditions that this community was based off of. They continue to maintain these graves and these symbols, even though they don't necessarily pertain to their own religion.
That's beautiful.
बहुत अच्छी तरह से लगती है कमेटी भी बनी हुई है दूसरा ना लोगों की हर कम्युनिटी की इसमें श्रद्धा है श्रद्धा के तौर पर भी जितनी इसकी संभाल होती है ना कमी नहीं
The
आती
more we keep learning about them, I think it's just...
This is a sign of respect, of common identity in spite of the border. But this is just one side of the story.
The subcontinent echoes and shudders to the sounds of a full-scale, undeclared war.
Within just a few months of drawing this border, India and Pakistan were fighting an all-out war. One that centered on this region in the north, which both sides claimed as their own. The new countries would fight several more wars over the years. A border fence would eventually fortify the majority of this boundary, and both countries would acquire nuclear weapons, turning up the tensions and deepening the division. But if you take away the geopolitical bluster, the nukes, the barrier, the trauma of partition, you can still see how much these two countries have in common. I'm at a school in Delhi. Students are Skyping with a school in Pakistan.
अच्छा हिंदुस्तान जो है वो पार्टीशन से पहले ना हम और इंडियन साथ में थे
Donnie.
These kids are speaking a similar language, and it takes them just minutes to dive into the common roots of their culture. This shared identity that these kids are feeling isn't uncommon in India or Pakistan.
Same language, same taste, same food. Whereas Hindus and Muslims and Sikhs used to live together, attend each other's social functions, marriages, everything. Why this divide now?
If you stand in the walled city in Amritsar and you stand in the walled city in Lahore, believe me, the smells, which is a kind of giveaway, are the same.
I'm visiting a group of Sikhs coming off the train. They were able to get a visa to go visit this religious site that most have to see through a telescope.
ਅਸੀਂ ਸਾਡਾ ਚਾਹ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਮਨੋਬਲ ਪੂਰਾ ਹੋਇਆ ਤੇ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਬਹੁਤ ਪਿਆਰ ਵੀ ਮਿਲਿਆ ਉਸ ਕੰਟਰੀ ਦਾ ਉੱਥੇ ਹੀ ਆਪਣਾ ਕਲਚਰ ਵੇਖਿਆ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਸਾਡਾ ਸਿੱਖ ਰਾਜ ਰਿਹਾ
So with all these cultural similarities, all these happy faces, shared interests, how do you explain this?
You see, it is the politician who poisons people's minds.
हिंदुस्तान दुनिया में सॉफ्टवेयर एक्सपोर्ट करता है और आपके हुक्मरान टेररिस्टों को एक्सपोर्ट करते हैं.
The divide is created, nurtured, fostered because it suits a certain politics.
Over the years, politicians on both sides have exploited tension with the other side to stoke feelings of nationalism.
और हम उसको तेज करेंगे और पूरे विश्व में आपको हम मजबूर करके
नफरत का कारण है मेरे लीडर, चाहे वो पाकिस्तान के लीडर हो या हिंदुस्तान के लीडर हो, ये शांति नहीं चाहते.
Back here at this viewing platform, there's construction vehicles everywhere. For years, the Sikhs have lobbied for easier access to their holy site. And after years, the two governments finally agreed to build a little notch into this border. A corridor that will allow Sikhs to freely access their site without a visa. These 4 kilometers will restore a small part of what was once the Sikh heartland. But for millions of Indians and Pakistanis who continue to live with the repercussions of the traumatic events of 1947, this fortified and volatile border remains unchanged. If anything, it's getting thicker. 70 years later, the shadow of partition continues to divide families, halt trade, cut connections, stop cooperation, instill fear, promote hatred. And the people who live in its shadow, on both sides, old and young, continue to live with this division that's superimposed upon their history of deep connection.
Vox usually does a fantastic job at kind of all aspects, and we're not going to go into the political side of it, so just get that out of your head right now, because that is obvious that politics for anything really are the ones that here in America, in South America, in India, in Pakistan, in China, they're usually the ones to blame. Not saying it's any specific person, so that's as much as we're going to talk about. But I do like that they usually kind of go into both aspects and then usually show that it's the people, like they're no different from one another. We have so much of anything, like we have so much more similar than we do different. And that's to do with almost anybody anywhere. Yeah. Americans have more in common with India than we have different.
And I appreciate the perspective that he was giving in this particular take. One of the things being the touchy-feely romantic that I am, I love the can't we all get along messages that happen with these kinds of videos.
Yeah.
However, I do dislike the oversimplification and the glossing over of extraordinarily complex realities. The reality of Kashmir is extraordinarily complex, as well as the differentiations that happen within belief systems. I mean, just within the Muslim community, you have stridently different opinions about the way Islam should be practiced. And so this, while being, I thought, really good from his perspective and giving you a sense of the humanity is what links us all and the politics is the divisive thing, I also would like to see another thing. For example, he didn't tell us anything about how and why Kashmir is the way that it is. I know some of it. I know some of why Kashmir became this focal point and why it still is. I also don't know why the British said we have to have a partition. I know that they did it. I know how they did it. But for me, everything is about the why. And I would love to see something that gives a little bit more educational aspect for me.
Well, this was also already a long video.
It was.
To get into the full reasons of everything,
Yeah,
it would take years.
Yeah, you could get a doctorate in it.
Yes.
I get it. But that's for me,
since he's not an actual historian.
Of course.
So he's just putting stuff together.
Yep.
And he only knows the human side of it.
Of course.
And so he's seeing these beautiful Sikh people that was beautiful. Like,
yeah, it was.
Carrying on, like, because these people to take care of these graves aren't there anymore, even though they don't share those beliefs at all.
Yeah, and our first real exposure to the humanity and the human story of this partition was, remember early on we did that one commercial reaction of the two brothers, I believe it was, who hadn't seen each other since partition, and that was a deeply moving and emotional.
I didn't realize the mass movement it created. It makes sense thinking about it, of course.
Yeah.
That if there's a divide, there would be a mass movement. But that makes sense. But I didn't realize it.
And I can already predict. I guarantee there's going to be folks you block in the comment section of this video.
Oh, 100%.
100%. Just because we're this is talking about this subject matter.
If you spew hate on either side, I don't give a damn where you're from. If you spew hate, I don't tolerate it. Sorry. I don't care if you think it's fact or not. I don't.
Yeah.
You have to.
You can voice a particular opinion about something.
It's not your opinion. It's the way you're doing it.
It's
and
the spirit in which you communicate stuff.
So I don't tolerate it. Sorry.
Yeah.
It's not something I do. But I thought Vox. I watch a lot of their videos, and I thought their video quality is beautiful. And it's wonderful.
And I do appreciate, as much as I said what I would prefer for my own subjective opinion, I really appreciate that I got the sense that this was genuinely this guy's perspective wanting us to get it. I love the juxtaposition of how similar things were on, the two side-by-sides of what was going on in India and what was going on in Pakistan.
Yeah.
And
the schools, and then I love when you could tell us if it's actually like something that's good or not, but them building a road basically. So actually doing something for these Sikh people.
That they can get to the holy place.
To the holy place, which that was heartbreaking that they weren't able to do that. But then also the thing that goes on every single day of just chanting. You could tell me if that's something that's divisive
at the border.
Yeah, or if it's something that's supposed to kind of unite.
Right, I couldn't tell.
Because obviously these two they said it's a coordinated thing.
Yeah.
So these people have to work together in order to do that. So I don't know if this is true. I'm hoping it's like almost a unity thing. Like, we're all one.
I don't know. It didn't feel like North and South Korea's borders, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It didn't give off that feeling. It gave off that it was more about we're more the same than we're not, but I don't know.
Hoping.
I am too. And I would like to know, as much as it is a compassionate and moving thing that the Sikhs would do the rites over the Muslim gravesite, I would have loved to have seen it. I don't know if he could have done it or even thought it. I would like to know how the Muslims actually feel about that. I don't know if that's something that a non-Muslim's supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
I believe that their motivation is from a right place in their heart, but simultaneously, do the Muslims who can't be there, do they view that as a thank you?
I would imagine.
I would hope so.
Because they said they all used to live together.
Yeah, I would hope that for them, it's a very touching, moving, and humanitarian expression.
And they say like he said, when the Sikhs, the people that actually got the visas to go over and look at the holy site, they said they were met with such love and respect. So that was great to see.
Yeah.
That because that obviously there's tensions, but I feel like the majority of people are like, you're a person, I'm a person. We come from basically the same place. Yeah. Like they were saying, that we cook the same food,
speak the same language, we have the same genetics.
Like it's so much more that brings us together.
Yeah.
So that aspect of it, I did really appreciate.
And would you help us and educate us? I know there'll be 100 of you who do this. I want to know why a partition in the first place. why couldn't India just be restored to India? What was the motivation behind the British, other than maybe potentially them seeing them getting them some hands on some profit between two different nations?
Maybe.
It may have been that, because I don't understand why there needed to be a partition when my understanding was that prior to colonization by the Brits, it was India.
Yeah.
It was just India. So why create this other country?
Weird.
Help me understand that.
It was a very informative video, like Vox usually does. So that was great. Be nice in the comment section.
Yes, please.
I will block you.
Yeah, you can. You can have differences of opinions that are extraordinarily strong and still be kind and be loving.
Yes. So just know that now.